Number 1. Aldrich Ames. Aldrich Ames was a trusted CIA officer who turned into one of America's worst traitors. From 1985 to 1994, he sold his country's biggest secrets to Russia, and his betrayal cost at least 10 people their lives. But what drove a loyal American intelligence officer to commit such devastating treason? Ames worked in the CIA's Soviet division, the department that was supposed to catch Russian spies, but he had a serious drinking problem and owed a lot of money. In April 1985, he walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington and did the unthinkable. He sold them the names of Americans secretly working against Russia for $50,000. This was just the start. For 9 years, Ames kept selling secrets. He gave away thousands of classified documents and revealed which CIA operations were happening in real time. The Russians paid him over $4 million total. His wife Rosario helped him and enjoyed the money too. The damage was massive. At least 10 American informants were caught and executed by the Soviets. Entire spy networks across Eastern Europe were destroyed overnight. The CIA had to rebuild everything from scratch. In 1994, the FBI finally caught him through careful surveillance, but his arrest wouldn't be the last time America would be shocked by betrayal from within. Number 2. Robert Hanssen. Robert Hanssen accomplished something even more shocking than Ames. He spied for Russia from inside the FBI itself for 22 years. From 1979 to 2001, the agent who was supposed to catch Soviet spies was actually one of them, and he almost got away with it. Hanssen joined the FBI in 1976 and quickly moved up to become a supervisor in Soviet counterintelligence. To everyone around him, he seemed like a devoted Catholic family man. Behind this mask, he was selling America's most protected secrets to the KGB and later the FSB. What made Hanssen extremely dangerous was his access and his cleverness. He gave Russians the names of double agents, nuclear defense secrets, and details about how America was watching Soviet embassies. He was so careful that he never met his Russian contacts face to face. They didn't even know his real name for years. They called him Ramon Garcia. His betrayal got multiple agents killed and damaged American intelligence for decades. Hanssen wasn't just in it for money like Ames. He was driven by ego, bitterness toward his coworkers, and greed combined. In February 2001, a former KGB officer tipped off the FBI. Hanssen was arrested and given 15 life sentences. But while America was dealing with traitors at home, Britain had already suffered an even more devastating betrayal. Number 3. Kim Philby. Kim Philby is considered the most dangerous British traitor in history. He was a high-ranking spy in MI6, Britain's secret service, but for 30 years, he secretly worked for Russia while climbing to the top of British intelligence. The question that haunted investigators for decades was simple. How could this have happened? Philby was recruited by Soviet spies while he was a student at Cambridge University in 1934. He joined MI6 in 1940 and became so trusted that by 1949, he was Britain's main connection to both the CIA and FBI in Washington. The Russians had a mole at the very heart of Western intelligence. From this powerful position, Philby warned Russia about Western operations before they could happen. He betrayed anti-Soviet spy networks all across Europe and sabotaged MI6 missions. When agents disappeared or operations mysteriously failed, nobody suspected the charming, well-connected Philby. The human cost was terrible. Hundreds of agents were arrested or killed because of what Philby told the Russians. British intelligence didn't trust its own people for an entire generation after this. In 1963, when he knew he was about to be exposed, he escaped to Moscow and lived there as a KGB hero until he died in 1988. But Philby's ideological betrayal was nothing compared to what one scientist would hand over to the Soviets. Number 4. Klaus Fuchs. Klaus Fuchs was a brilliant scientist who handed Russia the secret to building atomic bombs. This is where espionage changed from stealing information to potentially ending the world as we know it. Born in Germany in 1911, Fuchs escaped to Britain in 1933 to get away from the Nazis. He was secretly a communist who believed in Soviet ideology. When he got recruited to work on the Manhattan Project, the secret American program to build the atomic bomb, nobody knew they'd just let a Russian spy into the most sensitive weapons program ever created. From 1942 to 1949, Fuchs methodically passed atomic bomb blueprints to Soviet intelligence. He explained the implosion design that makes nuclear weapons work, handed over calculations about plutonium, and shared technical details that would have taken Russian scientists years to figure out on their own. The impact changed history forever. Experts believe Fuchs helped Russia get nuclear weapons at least 2 years earlier than they would have otherwise. This fundamentally shaped the Cold War and the nuclear arms race that brought the world closer to destruction. In 1950, Fuchs confessed and was arrested in Britain. Shockingly, he only got 14 years in prison. He was released in 1959 and moved to East Germany. But Fuchs wasn't the only one stealing atomic secrets. Number 5. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg became the only American civilians ever executed for spying during peacetime. Their case remains controversial to this day, with many still debating whether justice was truly served. Julius was an electrical engineer and devoted communist recruited by Soviet intelligence in 1942. He didn't work on the atomic bomb himself, but he built a network of scientists who did. His most valuable recruit was his own brother-in-law, David Greengold, who worked at Los Alamos where the bomb was being built. Ethel helped recruit spies, typed classified documents, and assisted in passing information to Soviet contacts. Historians still debate exactly how much she knew and did, but she was definitely involved. The secrets they stole helped Russia develop nuclear weapons faster than America expected. When the Soviets tested their first atomic bomb in 1949, years ahead of predictions, it shocked Americans and made Cold War fears much worse. Both were arrested in 1950 during America's Red Scare period. They refused to confess or cooperate with investigators. Despite worldwide protests and pleas for mercy, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed by electric chair on June 19, 1953. If you're finding these stories shocking, wait until you hear what's coming next. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of these incredible true spy stories. Number 6. George Blake. George Blake was a British MI6 officer who betrayed dozens of Western agents to the Soviet Union during the Cold War. But unlike the spies we've covered so far, Blake did something that seemed impossible. He escaped from prison and lived as a free man for over 50 years. Blake worked for British intelligence in the 1950s and was stationed in Berlin, right at the heart of Cold War espionage. After being captured during the Korean War, he became convinced that communism was right and capitalism was wrong. When he was released, he returned to MI6 and immediately started working for the KGB. His most devastating act was revealing the Berlin Tunnel Project, a secret Western operation to tap Soviet communications. He exposed entire MI6 operations across Eastern Europe and gave the KGB the names of British agents working undercover. Many of these agents were imprisoned or executed because of what Blake revealed. In 1961, Blake was finally caught and sentenced to 42 years in prison, one of the longest sentences ever given in Britain. But here's where his story takes an incredible turn. In 1966, he made a daring escape from Wormwood Scrubs prison using a rope ladder and fled to Moscow. He lived freely in Russia until his death in 2020 at age 98. While Blake escaped justice, another Cambridge spy lived a very different double life. Number 7. Anthony Blunt. Anthony Blunt pulled off one of the most shocking betrayals in British history. He was a royal art advisor who spent decades secretly spying for Russia. What made his story even more incredible was that when his treachery was discovered, the British government kept it secret for 15 years. Why would they do that? Blunt was recruited by Soviet intelligence at Cambridge University in the 1930s, becoming part of the infamous Cambridge 5 spy ring. During World War II, he worked for MI5, Britain's domestic intelligence service, where he had access to highly classified information about Nazi Germany and Allied operations. From this position, Blunt passed secrets to his Soviet handlers throughout the war and beyond. After the war, he became the surveyor of the Queen's pictures, advising the royal family on their art collection while continuing his double life. Imagine a Soviet spy working in the royal household. In 1964, British intelligence finally got a confession from Blunt after offering him immunity from prosecution. But the government kept this secret until 1979, when Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher publicly exposed him in Parliament. The revelation shocked Britain. Blunt was stripped of his knighthood and died in disgrace in 1983. His Cambridge colleague Donald Maclean had a similarly devastating impact on Western security. Number 8. Donald Maclean. Donald Maclean was a high-ranking British diplomat who secretly worked for Russia for 15 years. His access to NATO strategies and nuclear policy made him one of the most valuable Soviet spies during the early Cold War. And when the net finally closed around him, he pulled off one of the most dramatic escapes in espionage history. Born into a prominent British family, Maclean was recruited by Soviet intelligence while studying at Cambridge University in the 1930s. He joined Britain's Foreign Office and quickly rose through the ranks. By the late 1940s, he was working in the British Embassy in Washington with access to atomic energy discussions and NATO planning. From this position, Maclean leaked crucial NATO strategies to Moscow. He exposed nuclear policy decisions, revealed Western defense plans, and compromised diplomatic communications. The Russians knew what the West was planning before those plans could be executed. McLean's espionage seriously compromised NATO intelligence and gave Russia significant advantages during the early Cold War years. His fellow Cambridge spy, Guy Burgess, often worked alongside him, and the two became increasingly worried about being caught. In May 1951, when British intelligence was closing in, McLean and Burgess made a dramatic escape to the Soviet Union, where they lived for the rest of their lives. But espionage wasn't just a British and American problem. Number 9. Richard Sorge. Richard Sorge is called the greatest spy of World War II, and for good reason. This German journalist worked undercover in Japan and sent information to Russia that literally helped change the outcome of the war. His story reads like a Hollywood thriller, but every bit of it is true. Born in Russia but raised in Germany, Sorge became a committed communist and was recruited by Soviet intelligence. In 1933, he was sent to Tokyo, Japan, where he pretended to be a loyal Nazi journalist. He became so convincing that he infiltrated the German embassy and became friends with the German ambassador himself. From this perfect position, Sorge sent crucial intelligence to Moscow. His most important message came in 1941 when he reported that Japan had decided not to attack the Soviet Union from the east. Think about what this meant. Stalin could now move thousands of troops from the eastern borders to defend Moscow against the Nazi invasion from the west. This single piece of intelligence helped Russia win the Battle of Moscow, a turning point in the war against Nazi Germany. Without Sorge's information, history might have turned out very differently. In October 1941, Japanese police arrested Sorge. He was tortured, tried, and hanged in 1944. The Soviets didn't even acknowledge him as their spy until 20 years later. Number 10. Leopold Trepper. Leopold Trepper was a master spy who led the Red Orchestra, one of the largest and most successful Soviet intelligence networks in Nazi-occupied Europe during World War II. But his reward for risking his life to help Russia defeat the Nazis would shock you. Born in Poland, Trepper was recruited by Soviet intelligence and sent to Western Europe in the 1930s. He built a massive spy network that eventually included informants across Belgium, France, Germany, and other Nazi-occupied territories. The network was so large and effective that the Nazis called it the Red Orchestra because intercepted Soviet radio transmissions sounded like musical notes. Trepper's spies gathered information about German troop movements, military production, and war plans. They sent warnings about Operation Barbarossa, the Nazi invasion of Russia, though Stalin famously ignored these warnings. In 1942, the Gestapo finally arrested Trepper in Paris. Under torture, he appeared to cooperate, but actually fed the Nazis false information while secretly warning his network members. After the war, he returned to the Soviet Union, expecting a hero's welcome. Instead, Stalin imprisoned him for 10 years, paranoid about anyone who had been captured by the Germans. Trepper was finally released in 1955 and died in Israel in 1982. While male spies dominated the headlines, one woman was running massive spy operations in America. Number 11. Elizabeth Bentley. Elizabeth Bentley was known as the Red Spy Queen. She ran multiple Soviet spy cells inside the U.S. government during World War II and the early Cold War. But then she did something that shocked both the Soviets and the Americans. She walked into an FBI office and confessed everything. Born in Connecticut in 1908, Bentley became a communist in the 1930s and was recruited by Soviet intelligence. By the 1940s, she was running spy networks that had infiltrated the Treasury Department, State Department, and other sensitive government agencies. She collected classified documents and passed them to her Soviet handlers in New York. Her spy rings gathered information about American economic policy, military plans, and diplomatic strategy. The level of Soviet infiltration into the U.S. government during this period was shocking, and Bentley was at the center of it. But in 1945, after her lover and fellow Soviet spy Jacob Golos died, Bentley became disillusioned. She walked into an FBI office and confessed everything. Her testimony exposed over 80 Soviet agents working in the U.S. government. Bentley became a key witness during the Red Scare, though many people she named were never prosecuted. She died in 1963. Before we get to our final spy, hit that like button if you're enjoying these incredible true stories. Number 12. Mata Hari. Mata Hari is history's most famous spy, though historians still debate whether she was actually a dangerous agent or just a woman caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her story has become the ultimate spy legend, but the truth might surprise you. Born Margaretha Zell in the Netherlands in 1876, she reinvented herself as Mata Hari, an exotic dancer who performed across Europe. By World War I, she was having relationships with high-ranking military officers from multiple countries, giving her access to sensitive information. French intelligence accused her of being a German spy who passed Allied secrets to Germany using her romantic relationships. They claimed she used her charm and beauty as weapons, extracting military information from her lovers and selling it to German intelligence for money. Here's the twist. The evidence against her was actually quite weak. Some historians believe she may have done some low-level spying, while others think she was simply a convenient scapegoat during wartime paranoia. Regardless, French authorities arrested her in 1917. After a brief trial with questionable evidence, Mata Hari was found guilty and sentenced to death. On October 15, 1917, she was executed by firing squad in Paris. She allegedly refused a blindfold and blew a kiss to her executioners before they fired. From the halls of the CIA to the palaces of royalty, from atomic laboratories to Nazi-occupied Europe, these 12 spies changed the course of history in ways we're still feeling today. They stole nuclear secrets that brought the world to the brink of destruction. They betrayed hundreds of agents who were tortured and killed. They compromised intelligence operations that took decades to rebuild. Some were motivated by money, others by ideology, and some by a toxic mix of ego and resentment. Some faced justice, while others escaped and lived freely for decades. But all of them prove that sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one you're fighting on the battlefield, it's the one sitting right next to you. Which spy do you think was the most dangerous? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's greatest traitors, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our next video. Thanks for watching, and remember, trust no one.